Greetings and welcome to Parsing John. Today we get to take a look at how the Latin text and the Greek text compare for verses 29 through 31. This is only half of the section that we went through so far. Let's go ahead and get started. So our Greek text, first sentence is, on the next day, he sees the Jesus coming to him. Let me pause right there at the end. So take a look at the Latin. We've got on next day, John sees Jesus coming to himself. And so as we take a look at the two texts together, the Latin adds in John, which just is clarifying who the subject is. There's nothing wrong with that. It's merely a clarification in the text, which is actually very nice to have quite frequently. So nothing wrong so far. And he says, look, or here is the Lamb of the God, the one lifting up or removing the sin of the world. And in the Latin, and he says, look, Lamb of God who takes or lifts sin of world. As we take a look at the two together, eit and lege are roughly equivalent. Eit could be present or perfect tense. Lege can only be present tense, which means, use the correct color, that present tense is how we should treat eit in our Latin, which is so far so good. Ecce and ide are roughly equivalent also. Ide comes from a verb. Ecce, I actually don't know what that comes from. Agnos and ho amnos, they are the same thing in the corresponding languages. And then God here, there's only, of course, one God. In either text, they're both genitives showing possession, which is good. In our Greek, we've got a participial phrase right here, but in the Latin, we've got a relative clause with qui, and the way that participles work in both of these languages, those are actually roughly equivalent. There's nothing wrong with using a relative clause versus a pronoun, not a pronoun, preposition, though from what I understood about Latin, it really likes to use prepositional phrases, so it's kind of odd that we have a relative clause here. Though then again, we do have in our Greek a active participle, nominative singular present active participle, and depending on how Jerome would have wanted to translate this, that might not have been possible with the verbs available to him. Okay, moving forward, removing, lifting up, taking, lifting, those two appear to be similar enough to each other. Present tense, the sin singular and singular here as well, of the world and of the world. So far so good, no issues at all, just an addition of John, a different type of clause, but a clause that nonetheless still gives the same idea. Let's move forward. This one is in the place of whom, or for the sake of whom I said. Let's stop right there. This one is about whom I said. So we've got a first person singular perfect active indicative, first person singular, or third person plural, but first person singular is the one that makes most sense. Aorist and perfect are roughly the same tense in either languages, so far so good. We've got est and est, which is good, in the place of whom and about whom. So huper and de, our preposition right here, and our preposition right here in the English, they're not equivalents to each other, as we can tell from the language here. De is more along the lines of I'm telling a story about someone, not for the sake of someone. If we wanted to say for the sake of someone, we would want to do pro in the Latin. So that is an issue. Our Latin text deviates a little bit. No major change there, but there is a little bit of the sense lost in the Latin. Moving forward. After me, he comes, a man, who before me became. After me comes or came a man who has become or became before me. Take a look at these two. Got, if I could find my spot. Sorry. Hopi somu and post me. They are saying the same thing, so that's good. We've got a present tense right there. We've got present or perfect tense, which means that the present is the more likely of the two here. Then man, and then we've also got aner here. Relative clause, before, became, and became. Perfect tense and perfect tense. So Latin can't quite capture the same idea going on in the perfect that the Greek does, but still that it's about as close as Latin can get, which is good. That or because first with respect to me, or something like that. He was. Because he was before me. These two sentences work the same way. Clearly, Jerome thinks that hoti here is because, which does sound decent, at least in English. So that's pretty good. Verse 31. And I had not known him. And I was not knowing him, or I used to not know him. Taking a look at these two verbs, we've got a pluperfect of a very irregular verb in the Greek, and then we've got the imperfect tense in the Latin. Pluperfect here indicates a perfective action, an action that is done once and completed, or was done in the past, it is finished, and is done very, very far in the past, because plus perfect, more perfect than, say, the tense of this verb. Whereas in the Latin, we've got the imperfect tense, which is a imperfective action, an action that is ongoing. So the idea between our Latin here and our Greek here deviates, but this is only the verb here. It does change the sense of what's going on, and from what I can tell, it doesn't really damage the idea of anything that's going on in the text, but it's still a problem. Let's continue. Is this still visible? Yep. All the way down here. Yes. But in order that he may be revealed to the Israel, because of this I came, baptizing in water. But in order that he might be revealed to Israel, therefore, because of this, I came baptizing in water. So we've got a subjunctive here, and a subjunctive here. We've got the imperfect tense and the aorist tense. Similar problem to what we had with neskie bam and aidein. This one is pluperfect, that's imperfect. This one is imperfect, and this one is aorist. We've got a completed past tense action, and we've got an ongoing past tense action. So this implies that he's continuing to be revealed as we go, but this implies that there was one moment where he was revealed to everybody, and then whatever that was is now finished. So those two do not match up, which is not a good thing. To Israel, so far so good. Got a purpose clause and a purpose clause here, so those match up. Because of this one is singular, and propter ea is probably also singular. And then I came, first person singular, aorist tense. First person singular, perfect tense, so those two match up, that's good. Baptizing in water, we've got a present tense participle here, and a present tense participle here. They're so far so good. In water and in water place where. This verse looks pretty good other than our verbs here. So looking at this, we have, what was it? Really just 2-3 problems. We had day, when a different preposition probably would have been closer to the actual meaning of the Greek text, so that's not so good. And then we had 2 imperfect verbs when showing a uncompleted action, when in the Greek we have 2 completed action verbs. So the Latin's not doing so wonderful right now. There's no major loss in the sense that's going on. It's just, it's not clearly portraying everything that it could, and Latin is quite capable of doing. So that's slightly disappointing. We do, however, have our Latin translator here being nice to us, telling us who exactly is doing this verse in the event that we were stupid enough not to actually read everything in context. Well, there we go. That's verse 29 through 31. Latin's struggling along. Thank you very much for joining me. Next video, we're going to take verse 32 through 34, and I hope that it does better. Thank you for joining me again, and have a good day.